Hello and welcome to one of my favorite theories regarding Village. Is Elena actually Mother Miranda? I'm really surprised by the fact that a lot of people don't know about this theory, or at least when I first originally posted it back on Twitter in like 2022, 2023, nobody really knew anything about it. Allow me to indulge you in one of my favorite theories. So to begin, let's start off with some facts. If you don't know who Elena is, I'd be surprised if you didn't at this point. She's one of the characters that we kind of run into, or that Ethan runs into whenever he's trying to get through the village before the castle section. And I believe it's right after the Lycan attack. You run into Elena and her father, Leonardo, while you're trying to get to Louisa's house. So Elena had a lot of cut content. This was confirmed by her voice actress, Nicole Tompkins. It was confirmed by her voice actress, and we know based on the trailer alone, I think the first trailer for Village, that she had a lot of cut content. So that could explain a lot of this, or I mean not a lot of it, but some of it. Could explain some of it. So another fact, we know that Miranda can shapeshift into like pretty much just about anyone. I think she quite literally, like towards the end of the game while you're fighting her in her boss battle, she says something along the lines of, I can take any form I desire, a bird, a beast, even your lovely wife, implying that she was Miranda. We know from the scene where she's walking around Ethan and the mold tendrils are all coming out, we know that she was the hag, she was Mia. Now, the ceremony for Rose to become the vessel for Eva could only be completed with the deaths of the villagers and the lords. The Megamycete fed on these deaths and made it more powerful, thus strengthening the chances of Eva actually returning. So, of course, Miranda, knowing the village pretty much like the back of her hand, wanted to tie up all loose ends, and that she wanted to make sure that every person in the village was dead, because she wanted everybody dead that she could. That way she could actually have a better chance of bringing Eva back. So here's something interesting that you may have noticed, you may not have noticed. After Leonardo attacks everybody in the little gathering of the survivors that are left in the village, the only people who are left in the village, after that, they're going through the attic, and Elena mentions, I hope your family is safe. That's important. When you're going back through that scene, nobody ever asks Ethan what he's doing there. Nobody says anything like, hey, they know that he's not from there. He's not a local. He's, not from the village whatsoever. They all recognize that because they all know each other really well. They know that you're like, you're not from here. And yet, I understand why they didn't ask him anything, because they have all got they've got two important things going on right now. So I understand why they didn't ask him. But on that same note, because they didn't ask him, how is it that Elena knew? How did she know? I hope your family is safe. You don't know that he has a family. You don't know because you didn't ask. That could be explained by cut content, I guess. But anyway, back to the theory. Miranda discovers that the last of the villagers are hiding in Louisa's house most likely because Louisa had put on the radio that, hey, any survivors come to Louisa's house. And it's obvious that they're well protected by the gate and the fence and everything. So Miranda to get in there without completely destroying everything, which don't know why she didn't just use that to begin with, but to not completely destroy everything, she would have to be sneaky getting in there. And I think it's kind of implied that maybe she tried to go in already, and obviously they were refused. I also do think that Elena would have been, she was a real person at some point. I'll come back to this. I do think she was a real person at some point, and not just someone that, she made up. This in particular was not some life that she just, lived. The life that she lived as the hag to spy on the villagers. This was not that case. I think Elena was a real person at some point and died most likely either during the events of Village, before Ethan actually, saw her, or something like that. I think that she was real at some point. So her father, as we know, Leonardo, he ended up kind of transforming into a Lycan, or his transformation was beginning after he was attacked. But that's not how Lycans are made. They are not made by being bit. They're not werewolves. They're mutant humans. They share similarities to lycanthropy. But in lycanthropy, you have to be bitten by the werewolf or attacked by the werewolf in order to become one. And that's not the case with Lycans, because they are not werewolves. They are mutant humans who have been experimented on. So I have here in my notes, Lycans are created when someone is implanted with the Cadeau, and both the host and the parasite reject each other due to the host's low affinity. Which makes it even weirder that Moreau didn't become just a Lycan, or some big wolfy monster. because he also had really low affinity. That's neither here nor there. So knowing that, but given all the similarities Leonardo during his transformation had with the lichens that we see, you can assume that he was becoming one. But to make it even worse and to make it make even less sense, Elena says that he was cut by the other lichens, not that he was bitten. So even if this had like the same deal as lycanthropy, you were cut. You were cut by like a sword or something, I think. That's not how that works. Even if you wanted to use the logic of, oh, he was bitten or he was attacked by lichens, whatever, wouldn't Ethan then have also turned into one because he was bitten and had his fingers gone? Wouldn't that? So knowing that about the lichens, how they're created and everything, and the low affinity, that implies that Leonardo was infected prior to like the attack, him being attacked. This he most likely would have been experimented on by Miranda, Heisenberg, or Moreau. Most likely it was Miranda, and she knew that. She was like, ah, I know that you're infected and you're going to turn at some point. Maybe, I don't know if it's like a for sure when they actually turn or if it's based on like the affinity, you know, how low it actually is. I think that she did experiment on him and then was like, I can use you. Ah, haha, I can use you to kill the rest of them. Because again, Miranda is a literal genius, and I think that for the most part she had her plan pretty much thought out. I just also think Capcom did her really dirty, but again, that's neither here nor there. So because Miranda experimented on so many villagers with the Cadeau, she obviously would have known how durable lichens were and how hard they were to kill, probably just because of the Cadeau itself. So knowing that, assuming she was the one to experiment on him and implant the Cadeau in him anyway, I feel like she was like, yeah, you're going to turn eventually, and no one's going to be able to kill you. No one will be able to stand up to you, and they'll all trust you because they know you. It's the perfect plan. So within this theory, it's definitely possible that Miranda took on the appearance of Elena, of someone who had already died, so that she could fool Leonardo, and she could fool the rest of the villagers into not only letting her in to kill them, but also into letting Leonardo, who's infected and going to turn at any second now, also let him in. And then that's all her loose ends tied up because they're the last of the villagers. If she can get in there and kill all of them, that's just more power for the Megamycete. It is quite literally the perfect plan. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but I really love this theory if you can't tell. So we can also talk about the fact that Elena does die in the fire whenever the house is collapsing and she just falls in. And then Miranda appears out in the village not in the village, in the field just outside. So on top of the shapeshifting that we know Miranda can do pretty much at will, we also know, again, given by the scene where she, right before she kills Ethan, she's going through and she's walking behind these like the big things of mold, and she's like becoming one person, walks behind, appears just somewhere else. It's because of the mold. She can just kind of, I forget like what it was actually called when I was looking this up, but it's like she can kind of just transform into mold and then just appear somewhere else, like just like that. So we know she has that ability. We don't know that till later, but upon replaying it, you know that she has this ability to just kind of appear somewhere and then reappear elsewhere. Now, Elena also makes the comment when she's trying to enter Louisa's home, you know, maybe a familiar voice, like meaning maybe if they hear my voice, they'll let me in. This could imply that Miranda, again, wanted to get in the house with the remaining survivors with an infected Leonardo, using a face and a voice that the villagers knew and could trust. Obviously, this can be explained away as, like, where Ethan was banging on it. They'll be like, oh, you know, maybe just me. If this actually was Elena, she could be like, oh, maybe they'll know me. You know, that part can be explained away, I will admit. It's also possible that, like, I'm maybe filling in too many plot holes here, but Miranda could have wanted to keep Ethan isolated from any potential allies, from any help that he could have gotten in the village, on top of the fact that she wanted to kill everybody because that would empower the Megamycete further and then strengthen her chances to bring Eva back. But also, if she knows that, like, how strong he is, or she kind of has an inkling about how strong he is, she probably wants to put him through these trials just to see, you know, how am I going to deal with him? How do I kill him as well to add him to the Megamycete's records? I also like the part of this theory that Julian knew something was wrong with Elena whenever she first, like, her and Leonardo first came up, because it was implied that they had already tried to get into the house and they were either just, like, completely rejected, or nobody responded, no one answered. I think it's possible that Julian knew that just something was just weird about this Elena, whether it's she's talking different, she just looks a little different, but also at the same time his reaction does make sense because like he knows that Leonardo is injured, he knows that the blood attracts the lichens. That part does make sense why he was like, you are not welcome here. There are also a lot of coincidences. So the first one is that Ethan and Elena were the only ones to survive Leonardo's attack. I don't think that that was like not intentional. Obviously Ethan like pushes her back and everything, but I also think that it was the way that they were positioned. I think that, again, if this was Miranda, she knew and she was like, oh, you're gonna turn. Oh, let me get out of here. Also, Elena dying like that, I feel like was a little too coincidental to just like, I get it. She was grieving, you know, she was looking at her father after he had just called her name again after, you know, he killed a bunch of people, but also he just killed a bunch of people and you willingly shot him to get him off of Ethan, but now you're gonna go join him in death, which I also get it. I saw someone's, like, I was reading about this and I saw someone say, well, everyone that she knew, her family, they're all dead, so why not join them? I get that in a sense, but also not. Just feels a little too convenient. And also Elena couldn't have heard about him prior to their meeting, because as the Duke, this is something like that the Duke says, I'm not saying it correctly, but it's something similar that he says, everyone who is someone knows about you, like when he's talking to Ethan, which Louisa looks like, given her house and everything and the position of it, was most likely somebody of more importance in the village, and she didn't even know who Ethan was. So how is it that Elena, if you're going to use that excuse of, well, maybe she knew, how would she have known, though, if Louisa, who is higher up and didn't know, and she must be someone, and Elena's probably down here, and didn't know, and knew, actually. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And also couldn't have known about Ethan when he arrived in the village or whatever, couldn't have known about him beforehand, because Elena and Leonardo were stranded because they were being attacked by lichens. They were stranded. So they couldn't have even known that he was in the village to begin with. How would they have known who he was? How would they have known that how he was there, why he was there? This shit ain't adding up. This is something that I actually remembered while I was making this video and I was writing down all the notes. Before the lichen attack, as like after Ethan, I think he's grabbed through the floor when he first gets a gun, and then he sees all like the bodies underneath in like the basement, no, crawl space kind of area. The only reason I remember this is because there's also a body in there that looks a little bit too much like Ethan, and I made the joke one time, I was being really mean, and I was like, haha, look Ethan, it's you. That was just me being mean. But if you look, I think when you first enter, if you look to your right, there is a body there that looks like eerily similar to Elena. They wear pretty much similar clothes, they have a similar hairstyle, they have a similar face shape and everything. And I get that Capcom uses like a lot of models, they reuse a lot of stuff. However, given everything else, which could also, it could just be cut content that like it was explained maybe in this content and then it got cut and now it's just like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Either way, there's a body that looks eerily similar to Elena that is obviously dead. So using the knowledge that I just gave you, and you see that body, and you're like, huh, they're wearing pretty much the same outfit. They have the same, like, kind of hairstyle and hair color, and they have similar face shapes. Maybe it is Elena. Not saying it is, obviously. This is just a theory. I love theories. I don't really have a whole lot of them about Village, just because, like, I don't know. I feel like too much is up for like speculation, so it doesn't make theories as fun when there is too much unknown. I was also going to make the argument that eyes are the window to the soul. I love that when it comes to like shapeshifters or anybody who has been forcefully like shapeshifted into somebody else. I love the idea that their eyes don't change, but I can't quite tell what Miranda's eye color actually is with like 100% certainty. I couldn't tell you. I always like write to her that she has golden eyes. However, in some pictures, she has like really light blue eyes, and then another one she has golden eyes. And in certain lightings, they also change. So that could be a theory for another day. Maybe depending on her eye color is whether or not like the Megamycete's like controlling her or something. Maybe I'm cooking here. Okay, that's all I got. Shorter video for today because the theory is not very concrete, obviously, but like it's interesting in the sense of like it could make sense. I know that Miranda was really busy also like making sure everything with the ritual and the ceremony was going okay, but also if she's trying to make sure everybody actually is dead, it would make sense that she'd kind of go scope out, see that maybe Leonardo was being attacked, and then, like, kill Elena, because obviously she'd have no issue with this. She's done worse. So if she has no issue with it, she kills Elena, and then is like, oh my god, father, because I can take the form of anybody I desire. Oh my god, father, please come to Louisa's house and kill all of them for me. I mean, come to safety with me to Louisa's house, for sure. Okay, that's all I got. I hope this was enjoyable. I really like this, and if you have any other theories about anything in the game, or any of the other games, feel free to tell me. Maybe we'll explore them together at some point. Provide your evidence. Provide why you think this. Give me a whole essay. MLA format. I'm kidding. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate your support. I really am I'm enjoying making videos again. This is so much fun. Maybe the whole time I just needed to I have my own little desk. My setup back here is really messy, but don't mind that. Don't pay attention to that. It's also because I am really, really, really stressed in like every other aspect of my life. So I think me sitting down, focusing on something that used to bring me like so much joy, it is doing wonders for my mental health right now. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're eating well. Hope you're drinking enough water. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for your continued support. And I will see you all next time.